All right, so if you guys are unaware, a recent studio by the name of Bend Studio, which is a very interesting name, has announced that they're laying off 30% of their staff. They announced this yesterday. And even though they announced this yesterday, they put out a statement today, which we're going to go over in this video, talking about why they did it. Now, here's the thing. If you guys don't know who Bend Studio is, which you probably don't, Bend Studio was actually working on 2 games, one of which nobody wanted and nobody asked for, which is usually how this stuff tends to go, except unfortunately we usually see the product release instead of it not being released. But Bend Studio works for Sony, by the way, and they were working on a live service God of War game. Why were they working on a live service God of War game? I could not even begin to tell you, because as far as I'm aware, nobody is asking for a live service God of War game. I don't even know how you would even begin to make that into a thing, but nobody wanted a live service God of War game. And thankfully, nobody's going to get it because the game's been canceled. They were also working on a live service military shooter, but we didn't know the name of it. It was just a live service military shooter. That's all we know. So they were working on not 1, but 2 live service video games. And they were working on both of them for Sony because God knows Sony loves their live service games. And even though their single player games far surpass pretty much all of their live service games, they are continuing to double down and triple down on live service slop because they feel like that's the easiest way to milk the gamer for as much money as they possibly can. So before we get into this video, guys, special shout out to the 89,700 of you that are watching this channel right now and subscribe, and the 50% plus that aren't subscribed. Consider hitting that sub, man. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so Bend Studio laid off 30% of their staff, which you love to see. 30% of the staff yesterday, following the cancellation of its live service video games. In January, PlayStation canceled 2 projects. One was a live service God of War game, and the other was a live service military shooter led by the same studio. 2 weeks after the cancellation, Bend Studio let go of several contractors, and then in April, Bend Studio released Days Gone Remastered for PlayStation 5 and PC. The remaster introduced graphic and performance enhancements, blah, blah, all that stuff. But despite the new project, the studio is once again suffering layoffs. So, again, at this point, I don't know how many times we need to tell companies like Sony, but they just don't seem to get the message. And I think it's because there must be lower investment, I guess, involved or something along those lines when it comes to live service games. I guess live service games must be less risky to some extent because they keep trying to make them and they keep failing. I want to remind people, this is the company that Concord happened, and they're telling themselves, oh, we just took the biggest L in recent gaming history for everybody to see and make fun of us for. Oh, I know the answer. Let's double down and do the same exact fucking thing that got us laughed at in the first place. Let's make more live service games because that's what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants live service. No, that's not what everybody wants. But again, they don't want to listen. So let's talk about the layoffs. So Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, shout out to Jason Schreier, Mr. Get Woke, go to the top of the charts, reported that Sony's Bend Studio, which canceled a live service game earlier this year, is laying off 30% of the staff, which is around 40 people. Bloomberg News has learned the studio has been spinning up a new project following the cancellation. So they are, in fact, working on, I guess, a 3rd game. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. It's probably going to be a lot smaller in scope compared to their first 2 games because now they're down 40 developers. It remains to be seen if that new Bend Studio project will continue following this latest round of layoffs. One fan asked in the comment section if the studio is at risk of being closed, and Jason Schreier responded, unlikely. They'd have laid off 30% of the staff if they were going to close the studio. Now, of course, I don't think they're going to close. I think at this point, what ends up happening is the studio never just closes outright. Very rarely does that happen. Sure, it'll happen to some studios, but usually those studios are massively in debt. They have a track record of failures. It's not their first rodeo, right? And at that point, they're deemed basically a high risk, and whoever owns them will close them. But let's talk about what the actual comment was, because Bend Studio has actually addressed the layoffs, and they put a statement on social media after firing 40 developers. Let's see what they had to say. So they said, today we said goodbye to some incredibly talented teammates as we transition to our next project. We're deeply thankful for their contributions as they've shaped who we are, and their impact will always be part of our story. Gee, it's so emotional. It's one of these things where it's like, wow, you would think that they're damn near in relationships at this point. They always say the same thing. We love the people. We love everybody that we're firing, but just for some reason we chose these 40 and not the other 40. But yeah, we love them. We love these people. This is a difficult moment for our team. What, you got a death in the family or something? But we hold immense respect for everyone who got us here. As we move forward, we remain committed to building the future of Bend Studio with creativity, passion, and innovation in the titles that we craft. Now, here's the amazing thing, right? So they say they have immense respect for everyone who got them here, but I'm sure the 40% that you chose to fire, that you had less respect for, which is the reason why you fired them, I'm sure they're not exactly feeling very respected right now since, you chose to let them go. But it's not known what Bend Studio is working on as it enters this stressful time for the team. Most recently, the studio released Days Gone Remastered, which we spoke about earlier in the video. And historically, the studio has worked on a relatively small selection of games, with the company's brand being dominated for many years by Siphon Filter, a series that spanned 1999 to 2007, which, by the way, super based game. I don't know if you guys have ever played Siphon Filter, but I loved that series. Fantastic. And I'm not surprised to see a studio that is known for that, unfortunately, go this way and get felted to this magnitude. But this is where we are. If you are owned by Sony, chances are you're going to have to go down the live service rabbit hole at some point in time. It's only a matter of time, and it's sad, but this is where we're at. Most of the studios that have decided to try to do something live service oriented for Sony have ended up either laid off or completely shut down, which at this point, it's like, what are we doing? Why are you going to continue going down this rabbit hole? Go back to single player games. This is what you were good at. This is what you are known for. Your single player experiences are what most gamers are looking for. Stop this nonsense. Also, Bend developed some PlayStation-based handheld titles like Resistance Retribution, Uncharted Golden Abyss, which I liked Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation Portable, and Uncharted Fight for Fortune. The consensus going forward is that if Siphon Filter isn't being revisited and Days Gone isn't getting a sequel, Bend Studio must be working on a new IP. Either that or it's preparing to reboot Bubsy 3D, a stellar platformer from 1996. That's a new personal favorite of our Mike Straw. Yeah, I highly doubt that. A struggling studio is not going to reboot a fucking platformer unless it was one of the most amazing platformers ever and heavily well known. I highly doubt that. Chances are they're going to go revisit Siphon Filter. I gotta imagine they're going to revisit that franchise. If anything is going to bring Bend Studio back to the limelight, it's if they can create a modern, well done and crafted version of Siphon Filter. That's how they would make this happen, right? Either you remake it completely or you remaster it properly. That's the only way you're going to make any sort of money and come back. Otherwise, it's not going to be Bugsby. Why would you even... I swear, man, Insider Gaming is filled with some of the most stupid journalists, but they're like train wrecks. I can't look away. I look at their articles and I laugh at half the stupid things that they say. So ultimately, we have a story here of another studio that has effed around and found out, and whether or not it's their fault or not, doesn't really matter, because they're going to take the layoffs regardless of whether or not it's their fault. We cannot ignore the heavy play that Sony has to play with this, because in the constant chasing of live service titles, they have sacrificed a multitude of developers from multiple studios for stupid projects that everybody with a brain can clearly see was not going to be successful. Why would you think a live service God of War would be something anybody asked for is beyond me. And yet they're the ones that are in control of these studios, unfortunately, for them. So you can let me know in the comments down below what you think about this story. Do you think Bend Studio is going to bring back Siphon Filter, or do you think they're going to end up closing down because they are cooked? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.